Augustus, first Emperor of Rome by Adrian Goldsworthy. The character. Gaius Octavius Turnus is also known as Gaius Julius Caesar Octavius Augustus. According to the historians, he was probably born in 63 before Christ, on the 23rd of September. He started his career when he was very young. From a young age he took part in the military Roman life, especially because of his adoption by Julius Caesar. He trained hard so that he could soon become one of the best warriors in the Roman army, and he also succeeded in becoming a good and respected commander. When he was just a child, Augustus was already one of the most magnificent men in history, and was already predestined to the success because of different reasons. First of all, he had a lot of qualities. He was really clever and brilliant. He took great care of reinventing himself during his lifetime. He was vigorous and he loved culture and especially literature. On the other hand, he was ambitious, scheming, devious, ruthless, and without scruples. Consequently, he was extremely successful during his political career, and it also helped him many times against his enemies. Besides dedicating himself to military life, he also focused on his personal life. He married twice. His first wife was Scribonia, and then he married Livia, that brought him two sons-in-law, Tiberius and Drusus. The review. Augustus was the first emperor, the man who finally replaced the Republic, which had lasted for almost half a millennium, with a veiled monarchy. The system he created gave the empire other 250 years of stability, when it was both larger and more prosperous than at any other time. We call him emperor, but he called himself princeps. In fact, imperator did not have the same sense in Augustus' days as in our time. The story. After the death of Julius Caesar, the Roman Republic was in shambles. The Senate had little real power, and men were fighting for the position Caesar held and one Caesar aspired to. Octavian understood that Rome was nothing more than what the Senate made it. If he had wanted to rule, he would have needed their support. He made them believe he was their equal, and they trusted and respected him for it. There was a need for peace. The most amazing thing is how he acquired his power. Octavian did not take control by force. He acquired it through shrewd politics he chose. By appeasing the Senate, they in turn rewarded him with more power and control. Octavian acquired his power legally, and his story proves it. After Caesar's death, there was a void left at the top of the government. Two men were the natural choices to take over: Mark Antony, Caesar's right-hand man, or Octavian, Caesar's relative by blood. Antony, who was in Egypt recovering from war in Parthia, fell in love with Cleopatra, Queen of Egypt. Rumors circulated regarding those two and their plans for Rome, one of which included Cleopatra becoming Queen of Rome. Octavian, when alerted of these rumors, declared war against Antony and Cleopatra. After Octavian defeated her fleet, Cleopatra and Antony killed themselves, ending the argument over who should rule Rome. Octavian had two choices. He could have found a way to keep the power, or he could have shown Rome that he was a good man looking out for its interests. He gave it up. The second method, while not as easy and foolproof as the first, would have been Octavian's best chance for power and long life. Octavian was also lucky that, at the time, Romans were in dire need of peace. There had been civil war and constant fighting for 100 years, and they wanted it to end. This worked on Octavian's favor because of the fact that to kill him would have been like opening the position to more power-hungry politicians and generals. Octavian wisely chose the better of the two proposals. He would have kept his power by giving it up.
Octavian gambled by offering to give up his power, and he won. In the Senate, even though not every member was a supporter of Octavian, they could not deny that the past 2 years had been the most peaceful in the century. Those 2 years promised something not worth passing on, regardless of one's feelings of Octavian. After the Senate refused to let him resign, Octavian proposed a new plan. The system called for a government where the Senate and himself would share the power. Any ill feelings that the Senate had towards Octavian were gone, for the time being. They were so pleased by this turn of events that they guaranteed him a new title a few months later, Imperator. In 27 BCE, the same year as the title Imperator was given to him, the Senate gave him the honorary name of Augustus. The name Augustus meant something that is revered. It was such a revered name that it carried an almost religious meaning with itself. It had never been used before in the ancient world. Octavian accepted the name gratefully. Yet, he wished to be called by another name, Caesar. Now that Augustus knew the Romans wanted him to be their leader, he set to work. One thing he did was to divide the control of the provinces. The use of governors was not working anymore. They could not be trusted. Augustus saw this as an opening. He put all the peaceful provinces under the command of the Senate. After Octavian's death, the Senate position became more difficult. They were frequently opponents, but never Rome went back to the Republic. After the audacious attempts with which Drusus and his brother himself, Tiberius, had dealt with Germany, and despite the famous Varus defeat, Germanicus had continued to command on the Rhine, but then he had to leave it, to go to the east, and suddenly he died, so the wars were stopped. Military force allowed Augustus to reach his position of dominance, but it could also be the only power able to break his hold on power. So he needed the help of the legions, but they could ruin him. It was necessary to prevent anyone following in its own footsteps, or those of Sulla, Mark, Antony, etc. But it was not only a question of reducing the commands given to senators. Legions had to be kept loyal. Augustus had different experiences of mutinies to understand that. He was quite helped in this by the fact that when, after Axiom, the 60 legions came under his direct control, most of the men of these legions had served Julius Caesar, so they made an oath with him. This was a very powerful tie, linking them to his heir, but it was not enough, as the mutinies of men impatient of discharge quickly showed. It was very difficult to maintain such a huge army under control. Therefore, it was Augustus and his advisors' duty to decide on the size and shape of the army they would maintain. They had to calculate how many soldiers were necessary to Augustus in order to maintain his position and to defend or, if desired, expand the colonies. In fact, these two things were linked because of the fact that, if the empire had appeared weak, it would have damaged Augustus' auctoritas, even if it was not enough to invalidate the political career. The possibility that this would appear. It was very difficult to maintain such a huge army under control. Therefore, it was Augustus and his advisors' duty to decide on the size and shape of the army they would maintain. They had to calculate how many soldiers were necessary to Augustus in order to maintain his position and to defend or, if desired, expand the colonies. In fact, these two things were linked because of the fact that if the empire had appeared weak, it could have damaged Augustus' auctoritas, even if it was not enough to invalidate his political career. The possibility that this could appear could have given several enemies to him. At the end, Augustus decided for an army composed by 26 or 27 legions. Augustus was trained in his personal use of power. He tried not to force people to do his will, and left at least the appearance of choice. For instance, Augustus wanted an epic poem written about his life. While it's true that an eventually got one, he didn't punish those in his literary circus who turned it down. Writers were encouraged to compose works that proclaimed the imperial destiny. Augustus and his colleague, the wealthy Etruscan Maecenas, encouraged and supported members of the circle, including Prometheus, Horace, and Virgil. Maecenas knew the power of poetry and viewed it as a way of glorifying Augustus' regime. In spite of his significant contribution to the new political order in Rome, Maecenas is still best known for being a patron of the arts. He supported and promoted the career of such great Latin intellectuals. The Augustan era is known as the Golden Age of Latin literature, and it marks the first time in which Latin rose to the same level as Greek in terms of original literature contribution. Maecenas can be thought of as the force behind the flowering of literature culture, not only during his only life, but for several generations that followed. Propertius didn't need the financial input, but more than that, he wasn't interested in writing epic. Virgil, who likewise received remuneration, kept instead promising to write the epic. He died, however, before he finished the Aeneid, which is considered an ambitious attempt to join to the legendary history of Rome, with the glorious and noble present embodied in Emperor Augustus. There can be no question of a state-controlled literature, but there may have been then encouragement from the top to press the correct view, coupled with the genuine gratitude and relief on the part of the patrons and the writers alike, due to the fact that Augustus had restored peace and stability to public affairs. Augustus did not manage to have any blood heir, therefore he decided to adopt Tiberius Claudius Nero's son, whose mother was the second wife of Augustus. In fact, after Octavian's death, on the 19th Augustus 14 AD, Tiberius.
In 63 BC, the largest city in the known world was Rome, with a population numbered at least 750,000. Most people lived in insulae that were overcrowded. Inevitably, there were many births and deaths every day. Unsanitary, city, and also prone to fire. Augustus was aware of his public image, but the other Roman politicians advertised their wealth and their families' merits every time they could. Roman politicians lived their lives in public, so public life at Rome was ugly, theatrical. An example could be the one of Mark Antony, whose reputation has far more to do with his own propaganda than with his realistic military experiences and abilities. Augustus, on the contrary, wanted to appear a model of proper behavior in private life as well as in military campaigns. So, probably, the senatorial opposition obliged Augustus to hide the reality of his power behind a republican facade. The changes that took place in the institutional, social, economic, physical area visibly transformed Rome and the major empire, and they assume a true importance if we think about the peace they wanted to reach. The center of Rome by AD 14 was organized in different areas after Augustus' building program. He completed the Forum of Julius and built the Forum of Augustus in the civic center of the city, as a visible and permanent proof of his merits. He also restored ruined and burned temples and put the main roads in good condition. Some of the areas that composed the city center were the Curia, Basilica Aemilia, Sacred Way, Umbilicus Urbis, Temple of Concordia, Temple of Saturn, Rostra, Basilica Iulia, Temple of Castor, Pool of Juturna, Vesta, Arch of Augustus, and the Temple of Divus Iulius. A more in-depth description of Augustus' family tree. The father of Caesar was Gaius Iulius Caesar the Elder, proconsul of Asia in 90s BC, and the mother was Mother Aurelia, one of the Aurelii Cotte. He had got two sisters, Julia Major and Julia Minor. His notable relatives were Gaius Marius, married to his paternal aunt Julia, Mark Antony, his relative through Antony's mother Julia, Lucius Julius Caesar, his third cousin, Julius Sabinus, a Gaul of the Lingones at the time of the Batavian Rebellion of AD 69, claimed to be the great-grandson of Caesar on the grounds that his great-grandmother had been Caesar's lover during the Gallic Wars. Caesar had got three wives: Cornelia, Sinilla, from 84 BC until her death in 69 or 68 BC, Pompeia from 67 BC until he divorced her around 61 BC over the Bonadea scandal, and Calpurnia from 59 BC until Caesar's death. His children were Julia by Cornelia, born in 83 or 82 BC, Caesario by Cleopatra VII, born in 47 BC and killed at the age of 17 by Caesar's adopted son Octavianus. Posthumously adopted Gaius Julius Caesar Octavianus, his great-nephew by blood, grandson of Julia, his sister, who later became Emperor Augustus. Caesar had also suspected children: Marcus Junius Brutus, born in 85 BC. The historian Plutarch notes that Caesar believed Brutus to have been his illegitimate son, as his mother Servilia had been Caesar's lover during their youth. Caesar would have been 15 years old when Brutus was born. Iunia Tertia, born 60 BC. The daughter of Caesar's lover Servilia was believed by Cicero, among other contemporaries, to be Caesar's natural daughter. Decimus Junius Brutus Albinus, born 85-81 BC. On several occasions, Caesar expressed how he loved Decimus Brutus like a son. This Brutus was also named an heir of Caesar in case Octavius had died before the latter. Moreover, he had a grandson from Julia and Pompey, dead at several days, unnamed.